Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
What is this you want a replay of the babe that imitated Dr. Ballsy Ford because Snurdly didn't hear it yesterday? Okay, can we grab that from the I just saw the note. Can we grab that from the archives again? The actress, who I'm still not going to name because she got in a lot of trouble with her buddies on the left for doing this, but I mean, it is so spot on. So we'll get that. We've got a lot of time to get that. Greetings and welcome, folks. Here we are, revved and ready again, just as I said yesterday we would be, at the Rush Limbaugh program in the EIB network, 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program. You got it already? Okay, let's do this and get it out of the way. And then there's a couple other things I want to do to get out of the way before we get to the meat of this. I just want to point out that Christine Ballsy Ford's entire testimony was blown up by an ex-boyfriend of 6 years. The ex-boyfriend describes how after he broke up with her, she continued to use his credit card, that she never once expressed a fear of flying, that she lived for a time in a 500-square-foot home. So she's not claustrophobic. He said it didn't have two doors. That she never once mentioned being sexually assaulted by anybody. And the big deal is that she helped people prep to take lie detector tests. Never had a fear of flying. I've got a frog in my throat today, folks, and until I get rid of this, I may sporadically cough out there. It's very rude, and I apologize in advance for it. She never once mentioned sexual assault. He has sent a letter and signed it. His name's been redacted. He sent a letter to the committee. She's a doctor of psychology. She knows how to manipulate lie detector tests. She's coached people on how to do it. And again, just to review, never mentioned assault, never mentioned Kavanaugh, ex-boyfriend of 6 years, never demonstrated any kind of claustrophobia, never expressed or showed a fear of flying. In fact, they flew all around Hawaii, this boyfriend and Dr. Ford, in a little prop plane, and she never expressed any problem with flying. He also says that she is a polygraph expert and cheated on him. That was just a bonus. She cheated on him, and that was just a bonus. Now, it has also been learned, I want to try to develop this later today. I really hope this doesn't mean that I'm getting a cold. You get a frog in your throat. Red Tide. You talking about the algae thing over there? Well, no. I smoke enough cigars to be immune from most things. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's the nicotine that provides the immunity. It really does in my case. I can prove it. Every time I've quit smoking, I've got a perpetual, never-ending cold. Anyway, don't distract me on this. Red Tide, algae. Ron DeSantis will fix that after he becomes governor. I've seen his TV ads. He's going to fix that. So that's his primary message in his campaign ad. He's going to fix the bad algae and the red tide out there. Ron DeSantis. What was going to try to make the case here today, that you remember the prosecutor that the Republicans hired in a hearing, Rachel Mitchell, and everybody was just disappointed as hell and panning her and saying, what was going on? In retrospect now, with things that we have learned just in the last 24 hours, that woman was brilliant. That woman has caught Christine Ford in lies. If they're ever needed, if it's ever needed to expose this one, I think people are going to try to get through this without exposing Ford for what she is. Yeah. I'm going to talk about what Trump did. Trump did not mock her last night. He made fun of her claims. He did not imitate the way she speaks. But look, I understand Republican senators being alarmed about that, but you got to look at it this way. Trump is simply providing cover. Trump is giving them shade to go ahead and vote the way. Trump said what needs to be said, but these guys aren't going to say it. Her timeline alone has shifted. When do you think this incident with Kavanaugh, the alleged incident, happened? Because she has described it as early 82, mid 82, sometime in 83. Her timeline has changed based on who she's been talking to. And that has been documented. the fact that she has lied openly now about not knowing anything about polygraphs and not helping people pass them. There's a signatory to one of the support letters written for her, Monica McLean, retired FBI special agent, her best friend for life. And she is named as one of the people that Dr. Ford helped pass a lie detector test in her employment application for the FBI. Monica McLean issued a statement to ABC. I have never had Christine Ballsy Ford or anybody else prepare me or provide any other type of assistance whatsoever in connection with any polygraph exam I have taken at any time. I think they've been caught big time. And Rachel Mitchell, if I have time, I've just got enough data on this right before the program began. I didn't have time to assemble it. But the questioning that we all thought was a waste of time has exposed potentially Dr. Ford to so many lies that if it ever became necessary to use them, she could be destroyed. Credibility could be destroyed. And I think everybody's going to try to get past this or through this without any challenging of Dr. Ford because she's elicited such sympathy. And one of the ways she did that was with her speech pattern, which I am one of the only people in the media that I know of who pointed out her speech pattern. Look, I'm a professional and highly trained broadcast specialist. Vocal work, voice capabilities, voice talents, excuse me again, are that now I may have gotten it out there that time. We'll see. Are a specialty of mine. I recognize speech patterns. I am able to attach speech patterns to personality types. You can definitely do this. Well, a voice actress in Hollywood decided to post on Twitter her impersonation of Dr. Ford afterwards, and the Twitter universe came down on this woman unmercilessly. So we have not mentioned her name. It's out there, but I want to protect her, at least here, from any further assaults taking place. But here is what she posted, and it is so spot on.
I don't know if anybody is listening to the Dr. Blasey Ford testimony about Brett Kavanaugh, but this is how I sound. I know it's a surprise to even me that I talk this way, and I'm a doctor and a grown woman. I sound like I'm still back at that high school party. I can't help it. I just have this kind of a voice, like a baby, even though I'm a doctor and I'm on this media circus, political stage, and I have kids myself that I don't know why I speak with vocal fry. But you can listen to my testimony and hear that a grown woman sounds this way. Dr. Blasey Ford, thank you.
And that speech pattern, what does it make you think? You're dealing with a child here. The up-talking at the end of every sentence, it's vulnerability. It's fragility, almost in a way. Maybe even somebody nervous and traumatized and scared. And that is exactly the personality that I think she wanted to affect. And she succeeded with it. And it's because of that I think, no matter what is learned about her and how much she has lied, if you will, which, again, Rachel Mitchell has, if necessary, could blow this woman out of the water. That's what I had. Nobody else has put this together, by the way, that I've seen. I've just, in random show prep, a story here, story there, I've been noticing things. There'll be a little reference to what Rachel Mitchell asked her about subject A and her answer, and then you read another story, and there's one more reference to Rachel Mitchell. You put all these together, and it's almost as though Rachel Mitchell knew going in that she knew a lot more about Ballsy Ford than anybody has alluded to. She knew about Monica McLean. She knew about the polygraph. Everybody said, why is she asking this? Why are you? This is not what this is about, Kavanaugh. Why aren't you asking her details to confirm about her story? Instead, this prosecutor was asking all about seemingly unrelated or not really important things. So we will just have to say again, Monica McClain, retired FBI, and this, by the way, brings up or conjures up FBI. Ford has a best friend in the FBI who retired in 2016. Wonder how many people working on the Trump case at the FBI trying to establish collusion that Dr. Ford and Monica McClain know. You know, what kind of possible connection here is there? Maybe. So it's fascinating, as is the letter from the ex-boyfriend. And the primary reason the ex-boyfriend says he broke up with her is how she lied about using his credit card. He took her name off the credit card when they broke up, and she continued to use it. She charged about $600 on it. Ford was asked directly in the hearing if she had given tips on how to pass a polygraph. She said, never. Rachel Mitchell, have you ever given tips or advice to somebody who was looking to take a polygraph test? Never. Remember when that question was asked? I do. Say, what the hell was this? Now, Senator Grassley has been busy refuting claims made by Avenatti and others. Grassley is on fire, by the way. Grassley is doing such a bang-up job, as is his staff here. Grassley has sent a letter to Ford's attorneys telling them about the ex-boyfriend seeing her coach somebody on how to pass a lie detector test, and has again asked for the therapist notes and the polygraph, the audio-visual. They want to see it. Grassley and the committee want to see the notes of her meetings with her therapist, and they want to see the polygraph test that Ford took. And Ford's lawyers have refused to turn any of that over. So they're not being forthcoming with things that are crucial. Now Dianne Feinstein has made a move to seal the FBI investigation. I think they think the case is collapsing. And you know what I think evidence of the case collapsing is? This New York Times story on Trump's taxes. That's the first thing I thought when I saw that New York Times story. Because they've been sitting on this so long that Showtime has been able to prepare a TV documentary on it. So Showtime, which is owned by CBS, has been working with the New York Times on this documentary on the supposedly explosive details of Trump's taxes. And what do we know about Trump's taxes? Well, it's a blockbuster story of the day. The Times reports that Trump's father may have left him more money than anybody knew about 40 years ago. And that Trump and his siblings set up shell corporations and phony thises and that's to hide the money from the IRS. There's another blockbuster story out there today that Kavanaugh wrote a letter to his college friends that they should warn the neighbors in the Ocean City condo they were renting that they might make some noise. He wrote the letter 33 years ago. This shows that Kavanaugh was out of control in high school, going to loud parties, creating loud parties, loud noise. He was so thoughtful he sent neighbors a letter warning them that there might be some raucous noise coming from the condo when they threw the party. That's a blockbuster story out there. Monica McClain left the FBI and the DOJ after 24 years of employment there as soon as Trump won the election, 2016. The only thing Ford has turned over from the polygraph is 2 questions. Remember when that came up? The polygraph examination, I asked her 2 questions. It's 2 questions. What polygraph test, what lie detector test only asks 2 questions? That's all the committee has been given. Now, Ballsy's been citing the polygraph as proof that she's telling the truth. And now here comes his ex-boyfriend saying that the problem, the ex-boyfriend's a boy. And that gives Democrat senators the right to totally disbelieve him. Men, of course, lie all the time about things. Women never do, as it goes. Okay, so that's a little bit of the framework of what's coming. I want to take a break, and when we get back, some audio sound bites from CNN, unrelated to any of this, but yet they do mention your host, and it's kind of funny, and at the same time offers me an opportunity to make, yet again, a perception correction as I attempt to help CNN. This would be Christiane Amanpour. So hang on, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Washington Post recently reported that I had described militant feminism as irrational, that women are angry, something happened to them in their lives, their rage and anger, they take it out now in the country or on all men, and so forth. This became a subject for CNN International and Christiane Amanpour, talking with author Rebecca Traister about a new book, Good and Mad, The Revolutionary Power of Women's Anger.
Rush Limbaugh says something completely predictable. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to read something that Steve Bannon said, and he is considered the Eminence grise of realpolitik today. Let's play Rush Limbaugh first.
Militant feminism, it's irrational. These women are angry. Something has happened to them in their lives, and their rage and anger, they take it out now on the country or on all men, or men in the powerful majority, which are white Christian men and so forth. And how do you deal with psychological disorders?
Dear, oh dear, poor old Rush. Well, he'll be sorry to know that, as I said, the lion of populist politics and nationalism, Steve Bannon, had a quite different view of the Me Too movement. He saw it for perhaps what it was. He said, I think it's going to unfold like the Tea Party, only bigger. It's not Me Too. It's not just sexual harassment. It's an anti-patriarchy movement. Time's up on 10,000 years of recorded history. This is coming. This is real. And he said that in February, and he knows a thing or two about the political waves.
Now, here's the guest, the author Rebecca Traister.
I have strong suspicions that his saying that, and this is just my interpretation, is actually probably not so totally divorced from what Rush Limbaugh was saying, in that any time there is this kind of angry...
That's it. So basically, this babe was selling Christiane Amanpour. They're saying the same thing, Christiane. You just don't get it. Let me clarify. I'm not even talking about the Me Too movement. I disagree. The Me Too movement's going to become the Tea Party, but because I don't think that it's organic, and I don't think that I just don't think it has much in common with what the Tea Party is or the Tea Party was. But there really isn't, aside from the explanation of what's going on, Bannon and I are in total agreement here. I don't think it's just sexual harassment. I think it's hatred of men, and I said this. And I'm exploring the reasons why. I think terrible things have happened to these women, some of them in the course of their lives, and they have become enraged. And instead of just blaming the men who did whatever happened to them, they're going to blame everything. They're going to blame the country. They're going to blame all men. They're going to blame the founding. They're going to blame the majority, because all of liberalism is the same. It's just a coalition of a bunch of different constituency groups. But the objective of liberalism, no matter which constituency group you're talking about, is the same, and that is transform the country, transform it into something socialistic or communistic, into something it was never founded to be, by attacking via blame the power structure. The power structure they perceive to be, which in their case happens to be white Christian men. Call it the patriarchy or whatever. Bannon and I are basically saying the same thing, other than the Tea Party comparison. And she doesn't get it. Christiane Amanpour could not understand that if he tried to. Welcome back, folks. Great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh doing what I was born to do. Hosting the most listened to radio talk show in the country. There's a big lack of a reveal in the New York Times tax story on Trump. The New York Times did a year-long investigation of Trump's taxes. Now, I don't know where they got the returns. It's illegal that they have them. Obviously, somebody at the IRS doesn't care. I mean, the left has infiltrated everything. Obviously, that's how this happened. What doesn't matter. Once the Times has them, that's that. But they've had them now for a year. And note when the story runs. They ought not be trying to crowd out the Kavanaugh story, right? This is something ideally you'd want to wait until closer to the election. You want to maybe wait a couple of weeks. But no, they ran this thing yesterday, and now there's a companion Showtime Network documentary on this. So there's been some collaboration, might even say some collusion on this. Why cover up the Kavanaugh story with this? This is providing a huge challenge for the cable news networks. What to do? We got Trump out there. They claim he's mocking Ballsy Ford. He wasn't mocking her. Look, I understand Republican senators saying what they're saying. Oh, my God, this is unacceptable. I don't know why President did. He did it for some reason. Everybody's pointing out that Trump just last week was saying she was very credible. Yeah, he did. And we knew when he said that, why he said it. He had to. Everybody has to. Before all this is investigated and put to bed, you can't run out there and start ripping on her, even if it's deserved, even if it's warranted. Last week, you could not rip on Christine Ballsy Ford. There's no upside to doing it, no matter if you were right. Even if she was lying through her teeth and you could demonstrate it, last week was not the time to do it. So Trump joins the chorus. I find her compelling. I find her very credible. Well, now she's not so credible. She never was. But now she's not so credible. There's all kinds of holes, and Trump just pointed them out. All Trump did is point out the flaws in her story, which should have happened during the hearing last Thursday, but the Republicans were not going to go there. They were not going to challenge her because it just wasn't smart, especially with that voice that she was affecting to go after her in any way that would seem like an attack or like you didn't believe her. Would have not been politically useful. But in a normal congressional hearing, committee hearing, her allegations would be challenged and tested. They were not. That's all Trump did. Trump pointed out the mistakes or the lies or the differences, the prevarications. She can't remember where, when, who. The people she says were there says they weren't. That's all he did. Republican senators should have done that last week, but they couldn't. So Trump's giving them cover. Trump's providing shade for him, and let them go out and rip him for doing it if they want. He understands that. By this time, we have to assume Trump knows what he's doing. When he goes off script, he doesn't step in it. It may look like it, but he doesn't. But that's not the big takeaway. The big takeaway for me is this. 1 year, the New York Times has been investigating the Trumpster for 40 years. They've got tax returns going back who knows how long. And guess what's not part of the story? Guess what is not part of any income tax story on Donald Trump? Guess what one word you do not see in the report? Anybody want to take a guess? What? Payoff, did you say? No, that's not the word. What one word is not in this entire New York Times story? I'll give you a hint. It was the sole reason the left wanted to get their hands on Trump's tax returns. Russia, 10-4, that's it. They wanted Trump's tax returns because their tax returns, they said, would prove Trump colluded because his money came from Russia, because his wealth was because and due to Russian connections. That's what everybody on the left was convinced was true. And now here's the New York Times story. Year-long investigation. Trump's taxes going back more than 40 years, and they're not able to find any Russian money. So now they didn't find any Russian money, and I guarantee you they expected to. They're the ones that said this. They're the ones that said, I'm talking about everybody on MSNBC, CNN, go back a year, go back to the 2016 campaign, when everybody was hell-bent on proving that Trump was a Putin stooge. Trump was a toady Trump was compromised by Russia because it was Russia that enabled Trump to get rich. And his tax returns would prove it, they said. So I guarantee you when the New York Times got these documents, the first thing they did was make a beeline, keyword search, however they search it, looking for Russia, Russian names. Answer, big, fat, zilch, zero, nada. So now they're on to something else. Now they're back to what's always been said about Trump, that he got rich from his dad. Now they're saying that all kinds of phony entities were created, like shell corporations and other things for Trump and his siblings, not just Trump and his siblings, to hide money from the IRS, which, of course, they say is fraud. During all of this time, 40 years, you don't think Trump's tax returns have been poured over with a fine-tooth comb by IRS auditors? Do you think the New York Times has found something the IRS didn't know? I mean, after they're looking at Trump's tax returns, I think no Russia means gigantic letdown, which we're not going to see any evidence of because they're not going to write that. But I'm telling you, they were so sure that that's how they're going to get Trump. That's how they're going to make Mueller's investigation pay off, get Trump's tax returns. If you just think about it, you'll remember this. Now in this big, long story in the upcoming Showtime documentary, no mention of Russia or Russian finances as part of Trump's wealth. When they saw that had to just devastate them. So now they have to go looking for other things in this that will supposedly knock Trump. But I'll tell you this, Angus King, who's a senator from Maine, he's an independent, was telling a couple of journalists, you people, if you think that this is going to hurt Trump, you have got to learn something. You people on the left, this is Angus King, he's an independent, he goes with the Democrats. You got to learn something. Every time the New York Times or CNN or the Washington Post attacks Donald Trump, you just glue Trump's supporters even tighter to him. You think that Trump supporters are going to be talked out of supporting Trump because of the New York Times? It's never going to happen. Angus King said this isn't going to hurt Trump with his base. It's not going to cause to happen what you all want to happen. You want to separate Trump from his voters, but this isn't going to do it. This is just going to make them stick to him even tighter. Because this is what they expect you all to do. They are expecting you to try to destroy him. They're expecting the media to be joined at the hip with the Democrat Party to take out the guy they voted for and elected. Trump's voters admire him. Trump's voters celebrate him. Trump's voters back him because he's the only person like him out there in politics today that they can support. That's Angus King. Only time will tell if this is going to have some deleterious effect. But, folks, look at all the things that the media's dredged up since the 2016 campaign that they thought every one of them was going to be the silver bullet. Every one of these things they came up with was going to be the final nail in the coffin. The NBC Access Hollywood video. Oh, speaking of NBC, they've been caught making it up on 3 different stories about all these people claiming that Kavanaugh did this or did that. Every witness they've brought forward cannot be corroborated. NBC is doing a toe-tap double dance here, trying to cover themselves. Yeah. I have details of that coming up as well. In fact, let's take a brief time out now because it's a good time to do it. Be back here with more right after this. Hang on. Yeah, right here it is. 3 different NBC News stories on Kavanaugh face accuracy issues. One of them is NBC News published a misleading article that claimed Kavanaugh misled the public about when he first found out about Deborah Ramirez's accusation against him. That story falling apart. NBC spread a claim in an anonymous, uncorroborated letter, allegedly from a woman who claimed to have heard that Kavanaugh pushed his girlfriend up against a wall in 1998. That can't be corroborated. NBC also faced criticism for reporting on evidence-free social media posts from a woman who claimed to have heard rumors of Kavanaugh accuser Christine Ballsy Ford's accusation during high school. That can't be corroborated. I mean, the NBC has been putting things out there that nobody can find any evidence of. And now they're backtracking and trying to cover their rear ends. This is funny. Avenatti's case. He's the lawyer for Swetnick, who claims that Kavanaugh is running gang rapes. That has been totally nuked. And Avenatti has not produced any evidence, documentation requested by the Judiciary Committee. He hounds them all the time. So they've responded and they say, okay, well, send us what we're looking for here. We'll look into it. He doesn't send them anything. So his last communication to Mike Davis, who's the chief lawyer for nominations of the Judiciary Committee, Avenatti sends him a letter. Mr. Davis, stop playing games. If you're the chief counsel, then you need to do your job. Please respond to our requests. Davis wrote back, Mr. Avenatti, we've already reviewed your client's allegations. We focus on credible allegations. Please stop emailing me. This whole thing has been a setup, and the Democrat Party is in on it. Various special interest groups of the left are in on this. The setup is now continuing. First off, grab soundbite 31. Lindsey Graham in Washington today at the Atlantic Magazine Festival. Boy, is that a festival you'd like to go to, some magazine festival? Sure, there's lots of wine and cheese. The editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, is interviewing Lindsey Graham. Question, what would you say to the president about his performance last night where he disparaged Dr. Ford?
Everything he said was factual. He's frustrated his nominee has been treated so badly.
Factual is a personal degrading attack on someone who's a private citizen.
You know, here's what's personally degrading. This is what you get when you go through a trailer park with a $100 bill. You see, this is not the first time this has happened.
That's actually a reference to something somebody said.
In James Carville. See, most of y'all are too young to remember this. The bottom line is I know what can happen to a woman who comes forward in a political environment.
Now, what Graham's point is, there's a lot of young people in this audience that don't remember the Clinton years in 1992 when James Carville was trying to destroy Paula Jones. Hey, you never know what you're going to do when you drive a dollar bill through the trailer park. Look what you're going to come up with. Just what you're going to come up with. You're going to come up with women like this. That's our greatest president on earth, Bill Clinton. And that's Hillary Clinton was right in there trying to help destroy those women, and Lindsey Graham was referring to that. But these people in the audience didn't know it. They thought he was talking about Ford. And that's when he stopped and said, see, that's actually a reference to something somebody said. James Carville, most of you all are too young to remember this. So not only do they live in denial that it ever happened, now they're trying to shut down anybody who brings it up. You know, the Clinton years and what they did to women, supposed to go down the memory hole. Now I have a transcript. An anti-Kavanaugh protester confronted a Republican senator, and he pushed back. This was an attack or a confrontation walking down the hall. Anti-Kavanaugh protesters have flooded Capitol Hill, and they've been allowed to get into the hallways of the offices in Senate office buildings. How does that happen? But, well, we all know how it happens, but they're there. One of these protesters approached Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana on his way through a Senate building walkway Monday. And she said, why are you supporting Kavanaugh? Why are you supporting Kavanaugh? Cassidy did not ignore her. He took the chance to push back. He asked her if she would like it if her loved ones were destroyed by uncorroborated charges. Cassidy, why wouldn't I support Kavanaugh? Protester, because rapists are bad. Cassidy, wait a second. Everybody there said it didn't happen. He didn't rape anybody. So why am I you're going to believe Mark Judge over a woman? No, I'm going to believe her best friend who says it didn't happen. She wasn't there. Her best friend didn't say it didn't happen. Her best friend said she wasn't told about it. Her best friend said she didn't remember it. Protester, so you're okay as a doctor to harm a woman? Cassidy, wait a second. Are you okay as a person to go ahead and to accept a non-corroborated charge to destroy somebody's life? If it destroyed your life, your son's life, or your husband's? Wait a second. Answer my question. If it was your husband, your son, your father, whose life has been destroyed by uncorroborated, would you like that? Protester, I would support a full FBI investigation. We're dealing with programmed robots. I'm glad Cassidy pushed back, but it's a lost cause on the protester. The protester's not even hearing what he says. She's got programmed answers, bought and paid for by George Soros. And she hears keywords in what he says, knee-jerk reaction causing things, and replies accordingly. Cassidy, no. Would you like an uncorroborated charge destroyed? I wouldn't marry somebody that was a drunk, said the protester. Oh, no, wait a minute. Uncorroborated. Answer the question. I don't think you're able to, because you know it's unfair. Protester, I would stand up. Cassidy, you know it's unfair. Protester, I would fight, and I would make sure women are heard. Clearly you're okay if a rapist goes on the Supreme Court. Cassidy, no, I'm not. But then on the other hand, clearly you're okay. The absence of evidence obviously means nothing to you. Protester, no, there is evidence. Look at the standard. How many people are in jail for less? So what this, unless somebody like me gets hold of a transcript of something like this and help people understand it, it's a total waste of time to engage these protesters, especially if you're trying to persuade them. You can't persuade them, just like you can't persuade the media. You know, I've told the story when I was first at this. Very young, wet behind the ears, naive, and the media would want to talk to me. I thought this because they're really interested. I'm new. Nobody's ever heard of me. Radio shows taken off. I thought they were legitimately curious. And that's how I went into early interviews. And I found out that's not at all. They weren't curious about anything. They were simply there to discredit me, make fun of me, to raise doubts. It took me longer than I want to admit to figure this out. You cannot persuade these people. You can't change their minds in debate. It's why I say the only option is to defeat them politically. And that's happening, I hope. Back. Fastest 3 hours in media, and here we go, the first hour already in the can, all the way over to the Limbaugh Broadcast Museum archives at rushlimbaugh.com. We'll take our brief break here at the top of the hour. Your local affiliates will tell you what's important where you are, and it will be right back at it. Right now, here we are back at it. Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network. Greetings to you, music lovers, thrill seekers, and conversationalists all across the fruited plain. We have broadcast excellence for you for the next 2 hours. 1 hour already done and in the can. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. So the FBI probe of Kavanaugh expected to wrap up very soon. I asked Snerdley, are you worried about this? I mean, this is the FBI. These are the people that tried to screw Trump. These are the people that ran the coup. The silent coup. Working with people at DOJ. Now, many of those FBI people are gone, like Strzok, Smirk, and Page, McCabe, Comey, and so. By the way, did I see something? Comey is refusing a request to testify about something, and they're going to have to subpoena him. I saw a graphic on TV about that. We're overloaded here today, folks. It's requiring every talent I have to keep some semblance of organization. Because, I mean, things keep popping. You get the show prepared and show starts and half of it's irrelevant. But we do our best each and every day to make it all make sense once the entire presentation is completed. So the FBI investigation of Kavanaugh is expected to wrap up very soon, say people familiar with the process. This is a Wall Street Journal story. Then, after that, there are stories that say the only people that will see it are senators. McConnell said the only people going to see this report are senators. Remember what the FBI report is. It doesn't have any conclusions in it. Well, it isn't supposed to. It's just a series of 302s. Those are it's like a 1040 ES with the IRS. The 302 is simply an interview form. And the FBI goes out and talks to people and reports what they say. Might compare it with previous statements, turn it over to whoever asked for all this, in this case, the Senate Judiciary Committee, and then they form conclusions based on it. Now, when McConnell says that the only people going to see it are senators, it's guaranteed, therefore, to leak. And depending on what it says or what the conclusion of all this is, will have a lot to say about who ultimately leaks this. McConnell continues to be adamant there's going to be a vote. He's saying that no matter what you people try to intimidate our senators, it isn't going to work. We're going to have a vote on Kavanaugh, ostensibly on on Friday. Lawyers for Christine Ballsy Ford say that their client hasn't been interviewed, and they're desperate. They want the FBI to interview her. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not what this is. This is, it says right here, FBI probe of Kavanaugh. And that may be one of the things that's wrong here, but it's not an investigation of Ballsy Ford. It's an investigation of Kavanaugh. And the FBI's already done it 6 times. This is the 7th. There's not an official investigation into her. She's the accuser. She's above reproach, don't you know? This is we're so out of balance here. Women, activist, feminazi women, can demand all kinds of investigations into men. Men cannot require or demand investigations into women. You imagine if somebody tried that? I mean, women as an entire gender population of the country. Men are under investigation in this country, be it through Kavanaugh or through Trump or whoever. Now let's get to Trump mocking. This is thehill.com, mocking Christine Ballsy Ford. Let me look at the audio sound bites here. Grab soundbite number 5 and 6. This is what the left is really irritated about today. Last night in South Haven, Mississippi, a suburb of Memphis, it's just barely over the Tennessee-Mississippi state line. And here is Trump. This is at another Make America Again rally. Make America
How did you get
Great
home?
Again.
I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, where was it? I don't know. But I had 1 beer. That's the only thing I remember. And a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered.
Now, that is not mocking Ford. Mocking would have been to impersonate her. He didn't do that. See, this is what's wrong. Donald Trump simply voiced what no Republican senator would have. These are the questions she should have been asked last Thursday by Republican senators. Her timeline should have been challenged. Her allegations should have been challenged, but they weren't. The Democrats weren't going to. The Democrats announced her and stated her to be credible. She's above and beyond reproach. You cannot challenge her. She is the accuser. So the Republicans, they played right along and went out and had Rachel Mitchell ask her some questions, which now turned out to be brilliant, but at the time, we were all kind of curious, what the purpose was. All Trump is doing is reminding everybody what she said. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. The people she says were there say they weren't there. This is not mocking her. And this is a sign of what really is wrong in this country. An accuser comes forward and you can't poke holes in obvious places. You can't point out obvious discrepancies. You cannot reference or make mention of the differences in her story, depending on the day she's telling it. Whatever this is, it is not mocking Christine Ballsy Ford. Now, Trump has a lot of people saying, but this is crazy, Rush, because last week Trump was saying that she was credible and her testimony was compelling. I have explained this before, and I'm going to explain it again. Trump always, eventually, will tell you what he really thinks about anything. And he may not do that out of the batter's box. I have a name for this. I call it pacing. Trump will initially go out with a general opinion, like on gun control after a shooting, or the Dreamers, or in this case, Dr. Ballsy Ford. He'll call her credible, testimony compelling, and he'll even go so far as to say that, yeah, if she's telling the truth, yeah, then my nomination might be in trouble. Yeah, I'll agree with that. That gives him credibility. It makes people kind of cock their heads. They don't think Trump can be that fair. I'm talking about the media and the left, the Democrats. They don't think Trump can be that reasonable. But he does it to them every time. It gives him the credibility later to be critical and to step away. He said, yeah, I found her credible. I found her compelling. Then as we learn more, and then as events play out, Trump is able to parlay his original statements into what he really thinks based on what is not a knee-jerk reaction. If Trump were to have said initially what he said last night at the rally, why, there would have been hell to pay. But now he can back it up. Now there's all kinds of evidence that her timeline doesn't make any sense. We've got an ex-boyfriend claiming she is a polygraph expert and has taught people how to beat them. We have people challenging her account. We didn't have that last week. It is perfectly fine for Trump to do what he did. It gives him the credibility later to be critical and to step away. It's a common technique he uses. He does it on everything. It's why I've always told you, don't take his first draft statement or his first tweet as a sign that he's caving or flipping. You people, I'm sure you remember, there have been many instances, in fact, I may have fallen for one myself. That's how I learned. That Trump will tweet something or say something, it'll make you look like he's about... Before he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords, what did he say? Climate change is a very serious thing, and we have to look at it, and we are looking at it, and we'll do the right thing. Oh, so he's on record as being open about... Then later on, when he's learned what he needs to learn, comes out, tells you what he thinks, really thinks. It's a pattern. It's a technique. It's a Trump-developed... I don't even know if he developed or it's just how he does it naturally and instinctively. But I call it pacing. Now, Republicans have not built up this reputation. Senate Republicans haven't. Trump has. Trump has established that after he makes an initial statement on something, he can make fun of things. And what really irritates the left, he gets away with it. I cannot tell you how it irritates them. See, he shouldn't have survived the Access Hollywood video. He shouldn't have survived anything they've thrown at him. The fact that he has and has continued to prosper and triumph, I cannot tell you how blindly insane it has made them with rage. Other Republicans have not developed the gonads to do this and pull it off. Trump has been attacked so much. We're now, if you go back to 2015 when this campaign started, this is 2018, this is 3 years. In fact, it's 3 years and 3 months. Trump gets in June of 2015. Trump has been attacked so much, he doesn't care anymore. It doesn't bother him anymore, is my point. He's now willing to take the arrows. He's willing to take the hits for everybody else. That's why he is needed, folks. He is willing to do what he did last night. I know Murkowski and Collins are shuddering and cowering in the corner with the vapors. Oh, my God, it was so horrible. It wasn't horrible. Everything he said is true. He was not mocking her. The actress, audio we played, mocked Balsy Ford. Trump didn't. He just simply plays. She can't back up. She cannot corroborate. There isn't any corroboration for what she said. Why is that not relevant? Why does that not matter? Why have we gotten to a point where any woman can come forward and accuse any man of anything and it's gospel, and then be joined by a so-called movement called Me Too where all women can join it? Can you imagine if there was something going on there? Can you imagine if men organized for the express purpose of destroying women? You can't even imagine it, can you? You can't even imagine an organized movement, the male version of Me Too. Well, Rush, I mean, women are not out there sexually abused. Well, yeah, that does happen, but that's not the point. This is not about, even Bannon said it, this is not just about sexual abuse. This is about raw power. This is about female rage because of things that have happened to them, the leftist women, and they have organized all of these disorders into a giant political movement. I'm just asking you to think, can you envision a movement of men? If such a group existed, and Oprah Winfrey had invited the leader on her show, he'd have been thrown off in the first 10 minutes and have been ridiculed and made fun of for the rest of his life. It could not happen. Women are a minority, and supposedly, even though they're not, in numbers. But it's so out of balance. All Trump did was say what everybody following this knows, even the Democrats. The Democrats know all kinds of holes in her story. Trump doing what he's doing provides a lot of cover for a lot of people. That's one of the many reasons why he's needed. Trump said, guilty until proven innocent. That's very dangerous for our country. That's what this is. That's what the Democrat Party is insuring. And that's what Democrat senators have said, that the accused has to prove he didn't do it, that the accuser doesn't have to corroborate anything. The accuser doesn't have to prove anything. Where? In what civilized society is that real? Trump said guilty until proven innocent. That's very dangerous for our country. I have it myself all the time, but for me, it's like part of the job description. Let it happen to me. It shouldn't happen to him, meaning Kavanaugh. Translation, I'll take the hits. I will take the arrows. I will stand in the way of bullets, and I'll take them for the team. I got an email. Mr. Limbaugh, question. You barely see it mentioned on TV, but huge news in the last 24 hours that greatly affects the American middle class. Wage growth has hit a 17-month high. Job growth has hit a 7-month high. The stock market has hit another record high, 102 record highs during the Trump presidency. Service industry growth, Mr. Limbaugh, has hit another record high. And trade deals recently negotiated by Trump are helping everybody, particularly farmers. My question, Mr. Limbaugh, do people feel this and know why it's happening? Is anybody knowing this is happening? The media isn't talking about it. Trump is doing all this. Does anybody know it? Good question. Good question. The economy is perking along at a rate Obama never in fact, Obama told everybody this couldn't happen. The Democrats and Obama told everybody it couldn't happen. In the politics of yesterday, this would be all Trump needed to survive and withstand anything. This is why the media is not reporting it. CNBC has the details. Rip-roaring hot jobs market sees private payroll surge by 230,000, the highest since February. Well ahead of expectations. The experts predicted 185,000. Moody's economist Mark Zandi said the current pace suggests an unemployment rate of close to 3% in a year. So all the economic news is out of this world. And it's because of the Trump presidency. It's because of the Trump agenda. The Democrats have told everybody this could not happen. In the midst of all of this, there are two new independent generic ballot polls out. The big one is Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac University poll shows a Democrat generic ballot lead has been cut in half in month. It's gone from 14% to 12% to 7%, basically 50%. The generic ballot lead, the Democrats are losing it. Even Frank Luntz is tweeting this out. Quinnipiac showing Democrat generic ballot lead cut in half in a month. You know why? You know why? Kavanaugh. The experts are saying it's Kavanaugh. It's a backlash to Kavanaugh. And there's another story here about suburban women turning to Trump in droves because of Kavanaugh. Suburban women used to be the deadlock of the Democrat Party. College-educated suburban. I got to take a break. I just saw the clock. I'll find that. Be right back. Stay with us. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got the suburban women story. I'll save it for just a second. I got to get to the phones. It's been an hour and a half. I'm sorry, folks. This is Brian, St. Augustine, Florida. I really, really, really appreciate your waiting. Thank you.
Thanks, Rush. I just wanted to say that Kavanaugh is the scapegoat for all of the women who have been sexually assaulted but were afraid or embarrassed to report it.
Well, you may have a point. I think you're right along. You're right in line with one of my newfound theories, and it's actually not a newfound theory. What it is a very late arrival on my part of being able to verbalize it. You've heard over the years liberalism's a mental disease, and all kinds of people have said that. And I thought that's too simplistic, and besides, it's not effective. I mean, even if it's true, it's not going to be effective to say that. But that doesn't erase the fact that we're dealing with some genuine, incomprehensible, emotional problems on the part of these people. And I have to give credit where credit is due. It was a little blurb by Jim Garrity at National Review that caused the explosion of brain synapses in the frontal lobe here. He said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it right in front of me, but he said, I don't even think this is what I think psychological disorders, people with psychological disorders have become liberals in politics. That psychological disorders, people who have them, have brought their disorders into politics, and rather than just a singular thing that happened to them, they make it all about the country did it to them, or an entire population did it to them. And I think that's exactly what liberalism is and has become, and that's where we agree. Greetings and welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network. Folks, here's the Jim Garrity quote from National Review. The more time I spend covering politics, the more I'm convinced that a significant chunk of grassroots political activists are not really arguing about politics at all. These people are actually struggling with personal psychological issues and projecting them onto the world of politics. Bingo! I've been searching for that description for years. I have no problem admitting that I was unable to put this together. It's one of the rare moments I was unable to. This is exactly right. We're dealing with people who have suffered some kind of psychological disorder. They've turned to politics for the solution, or the revenge is actually what they're looking for. And they don't just want revenge against whoever did whatever to them. They are now demanding that every representative of the group, that the individual that did something to them, be made to pay a price for it. It's what the Me Too movement, in large part, was never bipartisan. It was thought to be, said to be, but it never was. And even if it was, it's been co-opted by the Democrat Party. Look at the Occupy Wall Street movement. Look at Black Lives Matter. Take any left-wing group that you want. It's made up of people who, for some reason, think they have been unjustly mistreated by somebody. And instead of dealing with that in their lives, they enter politics and they demand that the Democrat Party take up their cause, and the Democrat Party willingly has. The Democrat Party has become the party of all of these disparate constituency groups with their singular causes, because the Democrat Party realizes that they can combine all of these things into a singular assault on the concept of America, that America is responsible for what happened to these people, that capitalism is responsible, that the power structure, that the founding is responsible. And so people with psychological disorders are being granted the status of normalcy, and then the big donors come along and underwrite them and fund their efforts, and they become political movements. And then they become victims, and that, of course, allows them to blame everybody for what has gone wrong in their lives. And then they demand reciprocity or revenge or what have you. And I contend to you that most people on our side have no idea how to deal with this. No idea whatsoever. So we end up in debates about whether boys want to pretend to be girls so they can go into girls' bathrooms. And it becomes legitimate. It's sick. In many, not that specifically, but just the whole concept of what is happening here. And it is a violent, bullying, intimidating movement that has been constructed to push all of these disparate, various agendas. And the target is America. The target is America as founded. The target is American capitalism. And so when our caller says that Kavanaugh is simply a stand-in for men who have abused every woman out there, he's right. Ballsy Ford will end up being supported by other women who've been abused, whether she's telling the truth or not. It doesn't matter. Because it did happen to them. These women we don't know that are out there watching this. It did happen to them. And by God, somebody's going to pay for it. In this case, it'll be Kavanaugh. That's how they're going to be heard. Rather than just deal with the specific incident that happened to them. It's the same thing, I think, with Black Lives Matter or the NFL players kneeling for the anthem. All cops are bad. Every white cop is a racist. Every black convict is innocent. And every instance here points to the country at large as being responsible in unfairness, in bias, in discrimination, in racism, all of this. The Democrat Party is the organizing party, the collection agency for all of these complaints. Democrat Party's happy to make victims out of anybody who wants to be one. And Democrat Party is happy to promise these people that they'll fix it. And they never do. The rage and the anger never ends. It only gets worse because the Democrats don't fix anything. And finally, it doesn't even depend on being fixed. It just means somebody's got to pay. In this case, Kavanaugh. He's going to pay, whether he did it or not. Now, Sarah Sanders, White House press briefing is going on. She just laid into the press, and she said exactly what I said, if I don't mind saying so. She said Trump didn't mock anybody last night. He simply recited the facts. And he said all of this can be laid at the feet of the Democrats. They're to blame for this. None of this needed to have happened in public. They had Ballsy Ford's email or letter way back in July. They could have done everything that's been done to investigate her claim off record, behind the scenes, nobody knowing about it. But they didn't do that. They waited to use it as a Hail Mary. She disputes the idea that Trump mocked. She said all he was doing was reciting the facts. Here it is again. This is what the press, the media, everybody is out now ripping Trump, claiming that he mocked Christine Ballsy Ford.
How did you get home? I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, where was it? I don't know. But I had one beer. That's the only thing I remember. And a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered.
That is the point. Christine Ford is fine. Christine Ford is absolutely fine, despite how she acts. Kavanaugh's life shattered, ruined. His wife, his family, his past, his present, his future. Destroyed. They don't care. Sheldon Whitehouse, I'm sorry, not Sheldon, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. This guy is a walking soundbite. This guy's out there. He's saying things like some Democrats have no soul. Their mothers must not have breastfed them. They don't care who gets destroyed. Dr. Ford, her confidentiality, her family. They don't care if Kavanaugh gets destroyed. This is John Kennedy, Republican U.S. Senator from Louisiana. Some of my colleagues on the Democrat side are in good faith. Some, I'm convinced, don't even have a soul. Their mothers didn't breastfeed them. They didn't have to. They went to raw meat. They went right to raw meat. They don't care who gets destroyed, Dr. Ford or her confidentiality, her family. They don't care if Kavanaugh gets destroyed or his reputation. And Senator Kennedy said, what I'm hearing from voters in Louisiana is enough is enough. And right on cue from American Greatness, Democrats risk losing suburban women with Kavanaugh attacks. By Julie Kelly. I'm not a crier. One of my best friends teases me that Satan cries more than I do. My husband jokes about my 6-second cry when I finally do shed some tears. But as I watched Kavanaugh's opening statement at committee last Thursday, I cried. And for more than 6 seconds. I wept for him, for his crushed wife seated behind him, for his young daughters, for his friends, for his parents. I cried for our country. It was an emotional release of sympathy, frustration, and rage, and I wasn't alone. Several of my friends admitted they'd had the same reaction. Molly Hemingway mirrored the feelings of millions of women when she choked up that evening during an interview with Tucker Carlson. She said, I was sobbing when I was watching it. I heard that a lot from people as well. It was hard. It was just hard to watch those clips here. The Democrats' insistence that due process and a presumption of innocence do not apply to men, particularly conservative white men, is a terrifying prospect for the husbands and sons and fathers and brothers and friends that women love. The abject insistence on denial of due process, denial of presumption of innocence. Trump laid it out. She cannot confirm what she said. She has holes throughout all of it, and yet she is said to be eminently credible, and we can't challenge it. So Trump does. I'm telling you, folks, you better be thankful. If Trump hadn't done it, you wouldn't be hearing it anywhere but here and elsewhere in conservative media. And don't think that suburban women all across America aren't seeing the same thing. They are. Here's more Trump from the rally in South Haven, Mississippi last night. Here he took a shot at Swetnick and that lawyer Avenatti.
We had another woman just reported by a sleazebag lawyer named Aviate. Sleazebag. Well, it turned out even NBC, who's as bad as they get, even NBC couldn't shield her with that interview. Did you see that interview? This woman had no clue what was going on.
Sarah Sanders is saying to the press at the briefing that every bit of evidence they've seen so far supports Kavanaugh's case, and it does. And I have to take another break. Folks, I've taken one call in an hour and 45 minutes, and I really have to apologize. Let me tell you, this show does not happen. This show, we don't have producers in meetings. We don't plan segments here, and no matter what happens, do the segments. This show is entirely improv, and on days like this, it's reactionary, meaning things are happening on the fly. We have to react to them and try to keep some semblance of organization. And so it seems like with every break, something new happens that takes precedence over what I had planned to do just 5 minutes earlier. And that's what is being dealt with today. So, I mean, you do it on an improv basis, it's its own challenge. As opposed to TV shows, which are produced in advance, segments are laid out and planned. And the only time they blow through that is if they have to join something, cover it live. But we don't do that. So we're doing our best here to get all these elements in. And if you're on hold, I appreciate it. I really do. We'll get to you as soon as I can. So Rambo Blumenthal is out there attacking Trump and his vile attack on Dr. Ford. They call him Da Nang Dick. This is the guy that lied for many years about serving with bravery and honor in Vietnam when he had never, ever been there. He literally claimed that people were dying all around him, but that he and his platoon kept doing their job. He was never there. The guy's a sicko. He's a pathological liar. He got called out on it. The people of Connecticut still elected the guy. He used to be the Attorney General of State. Now he's a senator. I call him Rambo. Rambo Blumenthal. And I wish he would just sit in his office and play with his G.I. Joe dolls and be quiet. But no, he's out there claiming that Trump's vile attack on Dr. Ford disrespected the entire survivor community. We have a survivor community now. A survivor of men community now. It's on CNN. And here it is. This is even the Connecticut senator who himself has been the target of attacks from Trump. The target of attacks from Trump? The guy was a flat-out liar. What do you mean the target of attacks from Trump? Trump didn't attack anybody. He told everybody who the guy is. And here is Sarah Sanders. from the press briefing just now, exactly as I said. She got a question from John Roberts, and it was all about, do you think that maybe the president shouldn't have done it, mocking her like that, because you get Collins and Murkowski, and it may affect the way they vote, and it's horrible. Do you think the president maybe should have not done it?
The president was stating the facts, and frankly, facts that were included in Special Prosecutor Rachel Mitchell's report. He was stating facts that were given during Dr. Ford's testimony, and the Senate has to make a decision based on those facts and whether or not they see Judge Kavanaugh to be qualified to hold the position on the Supreme Court. Every single word Judge Kavanaugh has said has been picked apart. Every single word, second by second, of his testimony has been picked apart. Yet if anybody says anything about the accusations that have been thrown against them, that's totally off limits and outrageous.
Exactly right. You can't challenge her. So Trump did. For everybody else who doesn't have the gonads to do it, Trump did it. And yeah, he's providing a little shade for some of these people to hide under. And I'll guarantee you, they may be publicly saying, I wish he hadn't done it. That's outrageous what Trump did. They're thanking everybody he did it privately. Somebody has to say it. It's the freaking truth. Okay, now back to the phones. And we go to Toms River, New Jersey. Avram is next, and he is 15 years old. Avram, I'm glad you waited. You're next on the program. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Rush. It's great to speak to you again.
Great to have you back.
Yep. It's great to be on again. Anyway, so watching this whole thing, the Me Too movement, watching the Kavanaugh hearings, I'm 15. I'm just a regular straight guy. Nothing too abnormal. But I think that I really cannot believe any of these women that pop up on TV anymore. You can't believe any of them who are coming, oh, the guy raped me, the guy did this to me, did that to me. You had this girl on CNN a couple of months ago was saying that a guy raped her because he asked her for her phone number. Can't believe any of them. And I think that what this whole Me Too
okay,
thing
no, wait,
really
that, Avram, hang on. That is my exact point. I believe that woman. I believe she thinks she was raped when somebody asked her for her number. That's how she's been conditioned. Women's studies on campus, the outright hatred for men. I keep talking about it, but it's relevant. Catherine McKinnon, this is back in the 90s. She was a professor of women's studies at Michigan. She taught women in her class that all sex is rape, even the sex of marriage. The women were lapping it up. And women have been taught for 2 generations now that men are basically predators and that their own kids are not safe from their fathers. And it's not random. It's widespread. It is part and parcel of higher education today. So you have a woman, and she could be acting. I mean, she could be making this up, could be a political activist. But it's entirely possible at the same time, Avram, that because of what she's been taught and heard on the news and talking to her, she may literally believe that men have no right to ask for her phone number. It's the same thing as bullying her or raping her. That's my point. She may really believe it.
No, well, Rush, the same women that are screaming about how they've been raped are also the ones who want to have the right to have an abortion so they could have unlimited sex.
Avram, you're right. Sex without consequences, but you better not.
But then they claim that all men are predators, but then they run to hook up, and then they want to have abortions for free.
When it's their idea, then everything's fine. If the hookup is their idea. By the way, you're also right. It's not all women, but it's been made to look like that, isn't it? The Me Too movement supposedly includes all women. Women all across America who do not think this way are being lumped into this movement against their will. It's just an assumption that the Democrats and the drive-by media are making. I think, Avram, you're young, you're growing up. I think you're going to be okay finding a woman, but you got to be real careful about it. Just get written permission for every move you make. Get it notarized after the date. And up and move around. And it's a good time to do that now because we're coming up here at our top of the hour, obscene profit timeout. I have more left here to do than I can possibly squeeze in. But man, are we going to try. So hang on. And here we are back at it, just as promised. Rush Limbaugh behind the one and only golden EIB microphone. a household name in all four corners of the world, utilizing talent on loan from God. I think this whole thing has been a deep state setup job against both Trump and Kavanaugh. That this whole Christine Ballsy Ford thing, I think the whole thing is a setup. And I'm going to tell you when I thought that, folks. And I'm not at the point where I can go into details right now. It would not be productive. The minute I saw Dianne Feinstein hold up that letter and talk about having guys, it just started to smell right. Because I know these people. And the evidence of this is right in front of our faces. All we need to see is the DOJ, FBI silent coup that was run against Trump on this bogus Russia. Look at all of the allegations against Donald Trump that have turned out to be nothing. Nothing can be proven, established. Nothing can be made of them. And they have been never ending from the moment Trump got in the campaign. But they're really big things like Trump colluding with Russia. Remember, that's what finding the tax returns was all about. I have to make this point again. The left wanted Trump's tax returns because that was going to be the end. They were going to be able to prove, that's why Trump wouldn't release them. Remember, they said it would prove that Trump's wealth comes from Russia. And that's why Trump is a Putin stooge. That Trump would be nothing if it weren't for Putin and the Russians. Trump would have gone broke long ago, but Putin and the Russians bailed him out, and that's why Putin wanted Trump elected, and blah, 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 blah. So now we get news. The New York Times has had Trump's tax returns for a year, and they're pouring through them. And it's at the same time, Showtime Network is doing a documentary on the New York Times story and reporting in Trump's taxes. And would you believe it? They've had these documents on Trump's taxes for a year. They ran the big story yesterday. There's not a word about Russia anywhere in the Trump tax return story. And I'll guarantee you this. When the New York Times got whatever they have of Trump's tax returns, I will guarantee you the first thing they zeroed in on was trying to find evidence that Trump was doing business, shady business, with somebody or a series of people, oligarchs, don't you know, in Russia. And I'm here to tell you that the letdown that they experienced when they didn't find Russia in there nearly destroyed them. So they've been looking at these things for a year now, trying to find an alternate way of destroying Trump with his tax records because the Russian angle bombed out. That's the big takeaway on Trump's taxes to me. What isn't there versus what they thought was going to be there. And virtually every one of these attempts to get Trump has been concocted. Every one of them has been the result of a created and organized strategic plan, be it the silent coup on Trump-Russia collusion, be it Comey trying to set Trump up with the firing of, with Comey's being fired. It has been, since Trump was inaugurated, even during the transition, it's been a series of steps or efforts to get rid of Donald Trump, to overthrow the election results of 2016. And I think Christine Ballsy Ford is an element of that whole movement or that whole desire. The Democrat Party is in on it. They are as much a part of the deep state as the FBI, DOJ people that were doing this. And I think the objective of Christine Ballsy Ford, this whole thing, not her specifically, but I think she's an activist and in on it. But that's neither here nor there. The objective of this was to get Kavanaugh to withdraw his nomination or to have Trump pull it. Now that that hasn't happened, this case is beginning to collapse. You see stories all over the media about how all this so-called evidence just isn't there. They thought that the mere allegation that Kavanaugh would not sit there and let his life be destroyed like this. They thought Trump wouldn't sit there and let his nominee be destroyed like that because they think Trump's ego is such that he will not be allowed to be made to look bad because of what somebody else did or didn't do. So They thought there would be a giant cave on this, and there hasn't been. So now it is panic and scramble time. So they zero in on Flake. And Trump couldn't hold it in anymore. Last night at the rally, he just unloads on the fact that Christine Ford doesn't have any evidence, is changing her story. And the media is all over the place now saying, well, you know, this just may screwed it. Murkowski and Collins, they both think that Trump was horrible, and they both now might not vote for Kavanaugh. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I told you some things yesterday that I'm sure people have forgotten, but they're no different today than they were yesterday. Democrat senators in red states are in heap big re-election trouble. In fact, there was news yesterday, polling data, late polling data. We may be looking at a red wave in the Senate, not a blue wave. In North Dakota, which Trump carried by 36 points, Heidi Heitkamp is in deep doo-doo after having come out against Kavanaugh. The latest poll, taken after the Democrats began smearing Kavanaugh, but before the committee fiasco last week, showed that Kevin Cramer, the Republican opponent to Heitkamp, has opened a 10-point lead over Heitkamp. Joe Donnelly in Indiana is similarly nervous. Claire McCaskill in Missouri is losing to her challenger, Josh Hawley. Joe Manchin, West Virginia. They've all been hoping that McConnell would wimp out, or that some Republican senators would wimp out and not vote for Kavanaugh so that they would be off the hook and not have to. In other words, these three, Heitkamp, Donnelly, actually four, Donnelly, McCaskill, Manchin, and Heitkamp have all been hoping that Collins caves, that maybe even McConnell would cave, and that Murkowski would cave, and that Flake will continue to flake and cave. But in their states, there's hell to pay. In their states, people want Kavanaugh confirmed. In fact, in North Dakota, voters back Kavanaugh 60-27. Polling has begun heading the wrong way for Heidi Heitkamp. So my point is, it may not matter what happens to Collins and Murkowski. But if they actually don't vote for Kavanaugh simply based on what Trump said last night, well, that would be embarrassing for them. Now, since Trump's on the record as questioning the veracity of Dr. Ford, I want to share something with you I found today at Powerline. Scott Johnson, one of the contributors at Powerline, writes that a reader of theirs noted the changes in the timeline that Dr. Ford herself presented. The Powerline reader calls himself an engineer with a specialty in data visualization. And he made a graphic. He created a chart, in essence, based on public sources, based on the Washington Post and other legal documents. And it is the dates, the varying dates, the different dates of the sordid event Dr. Ballsy says happened. And the dates float. She's not even consistent with the dates. So the timeline of her story doesn't even add up. The reader notes the sudden story change correlating with the time progression in the story date column. I'll get to this in just a second. His question, why the sudden change within a few weeks after July 6th of 2018? The answer is that's when Dr. Ford came into the Democrat orbits of Anna Eshoo, Democrat California, and Feinstein and their staffs, and the highly partisan Democrat lawyer Deborah Katz, recommended by Feinstein. Right after that, Ford changed her story 2 more times in 2 months. She grew more specific after she began consulting with Democrat activists as they conspired to destroy Kavanaugh. So the chart here, and I know charts are difficult to convey, but this is a text chart. There is some bars in this thing. But it is entitled Dr. Christine Ballsy Ford's Ever-Changing Story. Multiple inconsistent stories of the date of the alleged incident. In the therapist notes, the incident is said to have occurred in the mid-1980s, when she was in couples therapy. The therapist notes from when she was in individual therapy say that the story occurred not in the mid-'80s, but the late 80s. In her text message to the Washington Post, she's back to saying that it happened in the mid-'80s. In her letter to Dianne Feinstein, she said the incident happened in the early 80s. In the handwritten statement, at the time she took her polygraph, high school summer in the 80s and early is crossed out. Early 80s could have been 80, 81. At the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, she said it happened in the summer of 1982. She had never said that before. She had said mid-'80s, late 80s, mid-'80s, early 80s, high school summer, early 80s. She specified summer 1982. These changes occur as she is in consultation with all these Democrat activists, the staff of Feinstein and Anna Eshoo and Deborah Katz, the lawyer. And her changing story leaves her short on credibility. Put aside her emotional performance. Her testimony reveals her as a witness whose memories change at her convenience. The problem for Dr. Ford is not that she doesn't remember everything, it's that everything she remembers changes at her convenience. First, Ford's testimony that the assault occurred in the summer of 82, when she was just 15, conflicted with both her therapist notes and the text message. There's that presidential alert. Are your phones and what? Yep. I forgot to warn you people about this. At 2:18 today, there's an emergency warning system test. It just happened. My watch started going crazy. And now I'm going to delete the test. It's just a test. It's not an Amber Alert. It's just a test that if global warming had been cited or sea levels had risen, then there would be this massive warning or alert from the president to tell everybody about it. And it's actually not from the president. It's not Trump on the other end of your phone or your device. It's the federal government. They're required to test this once every 3 years. This is the first test of it. And they test it during my show when they know a majority of Americans are going to be locked onto a device. It makes perfect sense. I just deleted it from my watch. I should have taken a screenshot of it. Let's see if it's on this phone here. Hang on. No, I've not lost my place. Yep, there it is. Let me get a screenshot here. And let me tap on it, see what happens. It's different. This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed. Sea levels are fine, and climate change remains a myth. Okay, cool. First, Ford's testimony that the assault occurred in the summer of 82 when just 15 conflicted with both her therapist notes and the text messages that Ford sent to the Washington Post. According to the reporter Emma Brown, Ford claimed she'd been assaulted in the mid-'80s. The therapist notes stated Ford had been the victim of an attempted rape in her late teens. Well, she was 15 in 1982, 83, somewhere along there. The rape happened in her late teens. By that time, Kavanaugh was at Yale, so Ford's recasting of the attack to the summer of 82 is suspect, and that happens after... In other words, this event, if it happened, she had all kinds of potential dates where it could have happened. And every time she reported this, the date changed. It became the summer of 82 only after she began to consult with Feinstein's staff and Anna Eshoo's staff and her lawyer, Deborah Katz. And I am convinced that they decided to claim the date was 82 so as to coincide with where Kavanaugh might have been able to be placed. She still, and this is fundamentally crucial, she still cannot specify when. Trump was right. She can't specify where, meaning the House. She can't specify the time of day. She doesn't remember how she got home. The floor plan of the House also changes. She ran out of a small bedroom to a bathroom on one instance of the story. In another instance, she ran out of the small bathroom into a living room, family room, combo room. So much of her story is fluid. And the Democrats know everything that I'm telling you. It doesn't matter because this is purely political. It's not about sexual abuse. It's political, and therefore she's going to be believed. Did anybody find it strange? The minute she makes the allegation, here comes a movie or a video of Hollywood actresses and all these Democrat senators, I believe her. Based on what? Well, based on the necessity of believing her, because this whole thing was strategized. This is what the left does. Meanwhile, the country is being asked to feel so bad and so sorry for a woman who was so mistreated. And don't forget, even the number of witnesses that she claims were there changes, and the sexual makeup, the gender makeup. Some cases, 5 people are there. Some cases, 3 people plus her. In one instance, it's all guys. In one instance, it's all guys and one woman, her best friend. But no matter, everybody she places there denies being there because she doesn't know when it was. And I really think, having now looked at Rachel Mitchell's questions in the aftermath of what we have learned, and I think Mitchell was brilliant. I think Rachel Mitchell, if it ever comes to this, her questions and the answers from Ford are going to be able to be assembled and compared with what Ford has said and the Democrats have said. And I think she, if it comes to this, she could be exposed as a serial perjurer. That was what Rachel Mitchell was after. Nobody saw it at the time. Everybody thought that Republicans were making a big mistake here rather than challenging her honesty and veracity while she was testifying. Okay, let's quickly go to the phones. It's Susie in West Virginia. I'm glad you waited your turn. Great to have you here.
Thank you. God bless you, Rush. It's an honor to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
I have a comment and then something personal to share.
Okay.
I've listened and watched what I can of these hearings. I sit and can't help to think, what if he would have appointed a woman? What would they have come up with then?
Trump almost did. Her name is Amy Coney Barrett, and she will be next. Theoretically, it was a toss-up, and it was decided to go to Kavanaugh because they thought it would be easier with Kavanaugh with his record, that the Democrats would be loaded for bear against a woman because Amy Coney Barrett, when she did her confirmation hearings for her current position on the court, Dianne Feinstein said to her, the dogma is thick with you, isn't it? Meaning your Catholic religion, your Catholicism is really deep in you, the dogma, because Amy Coney Barrett is openly pro-life.
Yes.
They would have destroyed her just like they're destroying Kavanaugh. They would have found a different angle to take, but make no mistake about it, they would not have gone easy. You see, that would have pointed out the hypocrisy. Hang on to break here coming up, Susie. We'll get back to you right after the break. But that's the hypocrisy. They would have destroyed this woman. Any woman. Here we go back to Susie in West Virginia. Thank you for waiting during the break. I'm just telling you, if Trump had picked a woman, or when he does pick a woman, they will destroy her. No matter, we're in the midst here of women must be believed and women cannot be challenged and women this or women that. They'll destroy a conservative judicial nominee if Trump picks one. You watch. It'll happen.
My other part I wanted to share is I have been raped twice in my life.
Oh, my God.
And as I listen to this woman, I agree with Trump. I'm going, where, when? You remember those things. And what bothers me the most to see the viciousness of what they're doing to this man's character. To me, they are raping his character. They are being just as vile. But what bothers me, part of me thinks there's something that happened to her. Some people have felt there's something happened in her past. But in taking and accusing...
Wait a minute. Can I stop you for a second there?
Yes.
Because you've just said that you have, shockingly frightening experience with this. Could you tell me why you think that in a lot of people, I think something definitely happened to her, probably made up something happened. Why do you think something happened to her?
Well, I go by with just listening to some people and thinking, well, given the benefit that something could have, but what she's doing is accusing the wrong person and letting the person that actually did it to her get off scot-free.
Yeah, that's the thing here with me. If something actually happened to her, then whoever did it is got to be laughing all the way to wherever he's headed.
Exactly.
Well, I'm sorry. I have a problem with this line of thinking. Something happened to her, obviously, but it may not have been capital.
Well, I'm not saying that I totally agree with it, but I'm going with the benefit of what people say, because how there was something. But if in that case,
people say that because they want to be seen acknowledging her as believable or credible, so that they don't get ripped.
I don't believe her. I do not believe her. And in accusing him, I do not believe her one bit, because she doesn't say where it happened. She can't remember their house. She can't remember this and that. I remember things of both of them.
Well, what about the business that some of these experiences are so demeaning, shocking, violent, that some victims don't want to remember and don't. They suppress it. Having had this happen, can you speak to that? Because there are a lot of people who I'm told have horrible things happen to them, and they do suppress the memories, and sometimes